So good morning and welcome. My name is Reverend Dr. Ron Fox, and welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living Sunday service. This would be a really good time, if you haven't done it, to turn your phones off, which is something I don't have to worry about today because we had a really fun time this morning. I forgot my phone and we were the first here. And so when we came in, I didn't remember the number for the alarm. And we set off the alarm today. And the director of operations, Randy, is not here. He's in Ohio. And I found out from one of the musicians, he actually called her and said, "What's going on there?" Finally, Becky got it. Anyway, so if you've never been to a Center for Spiritual Living before, I say this every week, we believe there's one God, many paths to that God, and we're here to love, honor, and support you, no matter what your divine path is. And the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast is a safe haven for people of all beliefs and lifestyles, whoever you are and wherever you find yourself on your journey of faith, you're welcome here. Our practitioner this morning, I'm not sure which is going to be which, but one of them is Patrice Rivera. You're going to be the practitioner, right? And her husband, Edgar, who's also a practitioner, is going to be our reader today. And I just really have a couple of announcements. This Saturday, the 20th at 10 o'clock in here is our Socrates Circle. It's really a really interesting, I was going to say fun, but it's not fun. It's kind of, we have some deep discussions on a topic and we time it so nobody can take off, but it's really an interesting way. So if you're interested, Saturday at 10 o'clock here. We also do a book group on Tuesdays at 2 on Zoom. And if you're interested, let me know and I'll give you the how to get on there. And the book we're doing is the 4 Agreements. And we're right at the end, close to the end, thank God. And we're looking for new books and suggestions. So if anybody would like to join and has suggestions on a book that we can go to, just see me, because we'll be glad to. We've had about 4 or 5 suggestions. I don't remember what they all are, so I'm not going to try to remember. Next week is the 3rd Sunday of the month, so it's unexpected income. So set the intention that unexpected income is going to come into your life, and we'll have the opportunity. Next month, we ask people if they've had it to come up and share how it came into their life and to share a little bit of the income with us. And with that, we're going to do one more announcement. Patrice is going to do it.
Across the wires. So Wednesday, 10:30 in this room, tap into your intuition through art. You don't have to be an artist. You don't even have to be able to draw a stick figure to come, because your inner wisdom will come through with watercolors. So come join us 10:30 to, what is it, 11:45 on Wednesday, right here.
You want us to bring any?
Nope, I've got everything.
Okay.
Nope, I got everything. Now that time for just some quiet inner contemplation. So if we can allow your gaze to soften or your eyes to close, allow your hands to just rest gently in your lap. Take in that deep breath, allowing yourself to just release. For we absolutely know beyond the shadow of a doubt that there is only one. There is only one life, one love, one divine energy that breathes each and every one of us in all ways, at all times. Never are we separate, for there is no separation. There is only that oneness. And in that oneness, I rejoice in every single being that's in this room, and every single being that hears the sound of my voice sometime during the week, and every single being who doesn't even know anything about us. I rejoice in that oneness. I rejoice in that love. I rejoice in that inner knowing that is the heart of each and every being. And in that place, I absolutely know that this meeting of like-minded souls is so blessed And it is such a blessing to this planet. I know that each and every word that comes out of Reverend Dr. Ron's mouth is something that someone somewhere needs to hear, that really hits that place inside of them, that makes them remember the truth of who they are. I know that as we sit and we listen and things bubble up inside of us, we remember that we are one. There is nothing to change, nothing to do, only to be. And in that being, I rejoice in letting it go and knowing that it is so.
Good morning. My reading this morning is from Your Invisible Power. It's by Judge Thomas Troward, who is a contemporary of Ernest Holmes. And both of those individuals tend to have long sentences. This morning, though, will be an exception. How to bring power in your word, into the power in your word into action. In every word you use, there is a power germ which expands and projects itself in the direction your word indicates and ultimately develops into physical expression. For example, you wish the consciousness of joy. Repeat the word joy secretly, persistently, and emphatically. The repetition of the word joy sets up a quality of vibration which causes the joy germ to begin to expand and project itself until your whole being is filled with joy. This is not a mere fancy, but a truth. Once you experience this power, you will daily prove to yourself that these facts have not been fabricated to fit a theory, but the theory has been built up by careful observation of facts. Everyone knows that joy comes from within. No one can give you joy. Another may give you cause for joy, but no one can be joyous for you. Joy is a state of consciousness, and consciousness is purely mental.
When Edgar got up there and said he was going to read from Thomas Troward, I got really nervous. When I was in the School of Ministry, we had to read Troward, and one of the other students, this is the truth, literally counted, and one of his sentences was 75 words long. So my title today is Where is Your Attention? So everybody that knows Becky and me knows how much I love that woman. And Becky is a practitioner emeritus. But I also have said at different times how difficult it could be to be married to a practitioner because you don't get away with anything, and I've given you the example of the book group that Ginny's on Zoom, that I used to attend, and there was somebody that drove me absolutely nuts. And I would go home and I would say to Becky, oh my God, she's driving me crazy. And Becky would say, I never got any sympathy. I would hear, what is she trying to teach you? She's your teacher, which is everything I didn't want to hear. I wanted some sympathy. Well, I found out also when you have friends right here that are practitioners, you get that back from them too. So let me tell you what I'm talking about. About 3 weeks ago, I had my car painted. They're laughing. And it was an unbelievably good job. I was so honestly surprised when Edgar drove me, when we went to pick up my car, we both said, oh my God, it looks like it's just coming out of the showroom, and it's a 2008, okay? And I was just thrilled. And so Edgar and Patrice and Becky and I were out to lunch, and I was telling them that I was so happy about it that everywhere I was driving, I was thinking, oh God, I don't want to get a scratch. I don't want to get a scratch. And so I would park away from cars. And when I was stopped at a red light, I would look at my rearview mirror And if I thought the car behind me was too close, I would inch up. And Becky and I went to a meeting, and guess what happened? 2 scratches. And I'm telling Patrice and Edgar, because I need Edgar now to drive me back to the paint place to get it redone. And rather than hearing, oh geez, that's really too bad, what I heard from Patrice was, I thought that was going to happen because you were focusing on the fear rather than, the positive. So that's what I'm talking about today. Where's your attention going? And John Azaroff in a book said, I just blanked on the book, but anyway, here's what he said. He said, here's the problem. Most people are thinking about what they don't want, and they're wondering why it happens over and over again. So, Esther and Jerry Hicks, also they wrote that everything we draw into our life comes from our attention. It comes from where we're putting our story. It responds to the stories that we're telling about ourselves. And Bob Proctor said that everything coming into your life, you're attracting. And so for me, a simple way to remember the law of attraction is like attracts like. And if we don't like the stories and we don't like what we're putting out there, the truth is we're the writer and we're the editor, so we can change them. And when we do that, our lives begin to change. And so what we need to do is develop a consciousness. We need to develop a consciousness that responds to what we want. And when we do that, we find that our life can change in really wonderful ways. So a while back, I read about a doctor who did a 5-year study on artists, athletes, and scholars. And the idea behind the study was he wanted to see what made them different from you and I, what made them excel in the way that they did. And his expectation, his hypothesis, when he went into doing this study was that he was going to hear about great natural gifts, like, Mickey Mantle was born Mickey Mantle. That isn't what he found. He did 5 years worth of interviews, and what he heard were stories of drive, of dedication, and of hard work. What we would call that in our philosophy is setting an intention. Meaning when we put our attention on something, that's what we get back. And an example that I read about was, some of you may remember Wilma Rudolph, the great track star. When she was a young girl, she got polio. And all of the doctors said to her, you are never going to walk again. Her mother said, yes, you're going to walk again. And Wilma said, I liked what my mother said, so I believed my mother. And what she did, she would see herself walking. She would see herself leading a normal life. And she did. She did what Ernest Holmes, the founder of CSL, said we should do. She turned from the condition that she didn't want, and she focused on what she did want in her life. And let me just give you a couple of quick quotes from Ernest Holmes. He said, thoughts are more than things. They're the cause of things. And he also wrote and said, it is the nature of the universe to give us what we are able to take. It cannot give us more. And the taking is mental. And so what he was saying was, you can't get more than what your consciousness allows into your life. And we create our future today, right now. What we're thinking about and what we're putting out into the universe today is what we're going to experience 2, 3, 4, 5 months from now. So if you want to get an idea of what your life is going to be that back forward, then take an inventory of what you're putting out into the universe now, and you'll know. Michael Beckwith, who founded Agape in Southern California, in one of his books, he said, where we place our attention determines the type of people, places, and conditions that we're going to manifest. So Becky and I have a subscription to Science of Mind magazine, and in the September 2022, that's next month's issue, we already got it. They always have an article by Ernest Holmes. And in there, Holmes described someone that he worked with. And it's a good example of what I'm talking about. So what he said, that there was this gentleman who was in his 60s who drove a bakery truck. And this fellow's daughter had healed herself from some kind of physical ailment through prayer and faith. And this fellow came to Holmes wondering if he could use the same techniques to heal himself from his life's condition. You see, he used to have a business, and it was a successful business, and somehow it went under. And so he was not really thrilled with now being in the position to drive a bakery truck. So Ernest Holmes said to him, I can help you. And he said, what I want you to do is take time every day to meditate on this. And this is what Holmes told him to meditate on. God wishes me to be successful. There's an intelligence in the universe that responds to me. There is a law of good that is able to do anything. God is right where I am. Therefore, I do not have to go anywhere to find him. The law of good is right where I am. Therefore, I do not have to go anywhere in search after it. I live and move and have my being in this divine spirit and this perfect law. I believe it will respond to me. Therefore, I am going to trust it. It's pretty powerful, isn't it? This fellow did what Holmes said for 3 months. After the third month, he's driving on his bakery route one day, and one of his customers said, I want to talk to you. He said, I've been looking to hire somebody in my business. Are you interested? And the fellow said, yes. And he said, to tell you the truth, I know the business because this is the same business I used to have, in the same industry or whatever. So he takes the job, and a short while later, this fellow comes to him and says, I want to retire. He said, I'd like to turn my business over to you, and the business is really successful, so you can pay me back from the profits that I know you're going to make. And Holmes said, of course he did it, and he was successful with the business for many years. And he told Holmes, this is what he used to think every day when he went to work. This is God's business. A power greater than I am is directing it. I am partners with this power. And Holmes wrote in this thing that this is a true story. And that because this fellow was willing to sit on an idea for 3 months, and he believed it, and he was persistent in it, he was able to manifest something truly wonderful in his life. So what are some, I want to talk to you about 3 or 4 things, actually 4, that we can do to help do that. And one of them is we can take time every day to visualize what it is we want. And I know last week I talked about dreams, and I mentioned this mental, we call it a mental equivalent. And I'm going to talk more about it later, but it means taking the time to really, whatever it is we want to manifest, to see it, to feel it, to hear it, to touch it, to really make it in our imagination as real as we possibly can. And there's another benefit from doing that, because actually when you do it and you see yourself with what you want, it's kind of like you're living it at the same time, even before you get it, And a second thing we can do is we can expect the best. And so, I don't know how people actually come up with this, but I've read this in a lot of different places. We all have 60,000 thoughts a day. Now, who the hell counts that? I don't know. But, so we're all going to have, imperfect thoughts that we're not crazy about, but we can move them away. And I read years ago that one of the techniques that Wayne Dyer used was every time he got a thought that he didn't want, he would stop and he would go next. He would dismiss that thought by saying next, and then go on to something else. And a third thing we could do is not give up, to keep doing the practice, what Holmes said, or whatever you're doing, meditating, doing affirmations, to keep it up. And Holmes said, somebody asked him, how long should I keep praying for this? And he said, until you get it. And the last thing is just to be grateful, to have gratitude, no matter, if our life isn't perfect, we always have something that we can be grateful for. So I want to tell you a story that Eric Butterworth wrote about in one of his books. And he said this, I don't know if this is a true story or apocryphal, but he said it happened in Java. And this beautiful young woman is walking down the street, and this young guy sees her and is totally smitten. So he follows her, and he's following her for a mile. And finally she sees him and she turns around and she said, why are you dogging my footsteps? And he said, because you're the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. And just by seeing you, I have fallen in love with you. Will you be mine? And she says to him, you think I'm beautiful? Turn around and look at my younger sister. She's 10 times more beautiful than I am. And he turns around and he sees this really homely girl. And he turns back to this other one and he says, you lied to me. And she said, you lied to me too. And he said, how did I lie to you? And she said, if you're really in love with me, why did you turn around? The kind of moral of that is, we go along in life and we think we know the truth, that God is the only power and presence in our life. And yet, when we go into our fear, whether it's the car or whatever it is, we turn around in the fear and forget about the faith. And Holmes said, if you don't know the truth when you're having difficult times, you don't know the truth. And he also said that, these aren't quotes, but he also said, it may be difficult to keep your mind on what you want when times are tough, but you can do it. You can do it. And I know, in my own life, it's not easy to do, but we can do it. And so, what all of this is about is, the bottom line is, we need to take responsibility for our life. And that means for everything. And so it means you can't blame. Blame is not helpful. And I was thinking about, because some of us, Becky and Reverend Jenna, who's not here today, and we're talking yesterday about our childhoods and other people's child. We probably all had really crummy childhoods in some way or another. Our parents might have done the best they could, but we've got scars. And it doesn't help to look back and blame them, because what blame does is, first of all, it's useless. It puts us in victimhood. And when we're in victimhood, it means that we have given up our power to somebody else, and we forget that we really are really super spiritual, powerful people. And if you don't like, I said this before, if you don't like what you're experiencing, you can change it. You can put out a new thought, Holmes said, change your thinking, change your life. It sounds so simple, but it really works. So we can ask ourselves, when life is tough, we can say to ourselves two things. First of all, how did I create this? How did I create this in my life? And the second thing we can say is, what do I need to put out into the universe to see something different? What do I need to put out in the universe to get a different result? And I saw this quote this week. Somebody put it on Facebook, but they didn't attribute it. And I know the person that put it out is a friend of mine, and they didn't think this up. But the quote is, "You are the healer and creator of your life. Don't waste your life waiting for someone to come along and change it. Change your thoughts." So I was telling Becky this morning on the way here that I have a story I want to tell you that, to me, so perfectly sums up what I've been talking about this morning, and I'll close with it. It's by a lady, the late Lynn Grabhorn, and she tells a story that she had a business and she closed down her business, and she had a friend named Tom who was actually he was a broker in Central California, okay? Tom had a brokerage in Central California, and he said to Lynn, "Go out and get your realtor's license, and I will train you. We're friends, you become my apprentice, and I will train you in the business." So she does. She goes out, she gets her realtor's license, and for months, he doesn't let her have a client because he's training her how to do it. Because Central California, as you'll see in a minute, it's big time. So finally, I think it's after 3 or 4 months, he lets her have her first client. And the client owns a huge ranch that overlooks the coast, overlooks the Pacific Ocean. And it's right on, for those of you that know the area, the Big Sur, okay? So, I mean, that's high price stuff, all right? And the client and the buyer agree. And Lynn writes, now this is really fabulous. Her commission on that deal would have brought her more money than she made in her entire work life. So she was in her 40s. Now imagine this. If she took every dollar that she made from maybe 21 to mid 40s and added it up, the commission from this one sale would have been more than that. Now you'd think that she would be thrilled. She panicked. She said to herself, "This is too good to be true. This is too easy. This is incredible." Tom was so proud of her. He said, "Oh my God, I am so proud of you. You did such a great job." She's thinking, this ain't gonna work. And guess what? It didn't. On the day the sale was going to close, the buyer found a legal loophole, and for whatever reason, the buyer backed out of the sale. It happened to her 2 more times. She had these immense sales, and rather than being in joy, she thought the thoughts that this is too good, whatever, and both sales fell through. And she finally went to Tom after the 3rd sale, and she said, fell through, and she said, "I quit. I can't handle this. It's too much." And the reason I think this is such a perfect example of what I've been talking about, listen to what Tom said to her. You know, I talked before about mental equivalent. Listen to what he said. He said to her, now they're friends, okay? He said, sweetie, you blew them away with your fears. You have to feel it closing. You have to see yourself shaking their hands. You have to see yourself celebrating. You gotta know it's gonna work, or trust me, it never will. And it didn't. 3 times it didn't, because whether it's a huge sale or whether it's a scratch on your newly painted car or whatever it is, if you're concentrating on the fear or what you don't want, that's what you bring into your life. You know, and again, what Ernest Holmes said is turn away from what you don't want and put your attention on what you do want. So I'll just close with this quote from Deepak Chopra, who said, every time you're tempted to react in the same old way, ask if you want to be a prisoner of the past or a pioneer of the future. So God bless you. Thank you for being here this morning, and have a great week. To come forward. Reverend Jen is the dedicated usher, but she's not here today. So if the rest of us could take a look in the bulletin, and on the back page, there's our joyful giving affirmation. I'll give you a minute. And we could repeat it together. I live in a consciousness of good. Divine love blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. So, just as a reminder, if anybody's interested in the book group, let me know and I'll give you the link. Or if you want to join it when we go to our next book and you have thoughts on a book that we could read, just please feel free to let me know. All right, I'm going to try to do the books that we actually have gotten recommendations on. Tuesdays with Maury, The Eye of the Storm, The Celestine Prophecy, Real Moments. I recommended that one. Real Moments, and one other one I don't remember. But thank you. She's not even in the book group. Conversations with God. So, but if you have any other thoughts, I don't exactly know. I'm not going to be the one to pick. I guess we'll go with what the majority of the group wants to go with. And if they pick one I don't like, I'll quit. So, how about if we take a moment to go within? And just to know that there is one life, that life is God, that life is each of our lives right here and right now. And that God works in and through each of our lives. And so when we open ourselves to that divine presence and we say yes, and we allow that divine presence to move into our life and into our being, we can fulfill dreams. We can live a life that's charmed. We can turn around a life that doesn't feel good, and we can make it into a life that does feel good, that we're so glad to be living, you know, and even if we're living a wonder-filled life now, we can lead an even more wonderful, wonder-filled life, because this divine presence knows no limits. This divine presence doesn't know the difference between a hangnail and stage 4 cancer. Whatever it is, we are part of a great team that can work together to work miracles, to touch lives, to be a healing, loving, kind, compassionate, peaceful presence. And all we need to do is say, yes, come to me. And so for all of this and so much more, I just give thanks, I release the word, and let it be. And so it is. So this is always the tricky part of the service. We're going to do the closing song and put the words up, or yes? Today it's going to happen, right? So if we could all stand and we'll join Daniel Nema
A
in
beautiful
doing,
song about being.
and then we'll do the closing affirmation. Peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as creator, family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. So if we can repeat after me, something wonderful is happening to me right now.
Something wonderful is happening to me right now.
It is this thing called life.
It is this thing called life.
Life is in my mind.
Life is in my mind.
Life is in my body.
Life is in my body.
Life is in my affairs.
Life is in my affairs.
I receive it.
I receive
I
it.
share it.
I share it.
I am it.
I am it.
And I accept it
And I accept it.
just the way that it is
Just the way that it is.
and just the way that it is not.
And just the way that it is not.
Thank you, life.
Thank you, life.
And so it is. So for Vicki and Sally, just to let you know what we do.